Welcome back to the video store. We're hanging out here for another episode of the VHS Club, and we're taking it back even another decade into the 80s because we just can't help ourselves. We need to talk about Labyrinth. So we're making an exception to our 90s kick rule, but that's okay. I feel like that's okay.
It was also just our Valentine's pick, so
It's true. We did a poll. We did a very super official social media poll, and the people chose. The people said Labyrinth all the way. They like the other two, Sleepless in Seattle and She's All That. They just didn't even stand a chance. We're gonna have to do those in future episodes.
We will.
Everyone was Team Labyrinth for this one, which is great because this happens to be like Nat's all-time favorite movie. Is that fair to say? I feel like this is like your.
It's in the top 3.
Okay,
yeah.
top three.
Yeah.
So which is
I mean,
great.
I have an extreme emotional attachment to this movie, because as most people, I am in love with Jareth, the Goblin King.
It's true. We're all hoping that we would just be kidnapped away by Jareth the Goblin King. It is yet to happen, but you know, it's goals.
Like, I've asked the goblins and I used the correct words. I even said right now, and it didn't happen.
Has not yet happened. Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry, there's a fire truck outside my house. Yay, live!
Oh no, I love that because every single time that I'm in my office where I do a lot of live streams and podcast episodes, it is never ceases to fail that it is always like the time period where everything is burning down. Every emergency vehicle drives through during the time that I'm live. It's just how it goes.
We are a little nervous on our street because during lockdown, a house 2 doors down did burn down. So every time a fire truck stops on the street, the neighbors are all like...
Okay, well then we won't make fun of the fire trucks.
It seems to have gone by, so I'm hoping that we're okay now. Panic over. Okay. Whew.
All right, panic over. Well, in case you missed it or you just turned this podcast on, today we were talking about the Labyrinth. I think just Labyrinth, actually. I want to call it the Labyrinth.
Just Labyrinth.
It's just Labyrinth.
It's just Labyrinth.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Is epic. And Nat's got all the details because in true VHS Club fashion, Nat has watched the movie, and I have done the bonus notes that are not helpful at all to this episode. So buckle up, and here we go. All right, Nat, let's dive into the story of this incredible 80s movie this time, you guys. We're diving into the 80s just for this one episode, then we'll back to the 90s for next week.
So, Labyrinth, starring Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie. Swoon.
So much
David Bowie in 80s tight pants with 80s glam metal hair. It just... Okay. Focus. So easy to sidetrack.
Yes.
He's beautiful.
Yes.
So also super fun about this movie is David Bowie wrote and composed all the songs for it. Mm-hmm. So we get to the opening scene of the movie. It is instantly like you see the 20th Century Fox or whatever, you know, going but the music, you know right away, it's magical. It's magical. You can hear it in the music. And then we see an owl swooping in, and it opens to Jennifer Connelly running in this beautiful park in this beautiful costume, this sort of medieval, like maiden, like Maid Marian kind of costume, quoting lines from play. And she always keeps forgetting this one line, and she pulls this book out called Labyrinth. And she's reading and she's quoting lines about this Goblin King, yada yada. And then she realizes she's going to be late to go home to babysit her baby brother, Toby. And she's always stuck babysitting this baby brother. And one thing about that scene when she's running home because she's late that I loved, and I find it always sets a mood in a movie, is it starts pouring rain.
Oh yeah.
Like when you get caught in the rain.
You need the caught in the rain movie
Always.
moment for sure.
It sets it up. It's something, you know, something intense is coming because you're caught in the rain. So she gets home, her stepmom is yelling at her because she's late, and then saying, like, you know, basically like, how could you be late? And she's like, well, you never asked me if I have plans. She's like, I always said I would, you know, not have you babysit if you actually had plans, which I found like super condescending.
It's
like,
really, yeah.
She hates her creative world. She hates that this girl is creative and an introvert because she clearly is by herself, has no friends, and the mom reads her for not dating more. Like,
yeah, and how old is she supposed to be? Because she also looks pretty young for the parents to just be like, peace out, here is this small child that you need to take care of.
An infant. Like an actual, like maybe 6. Oh, he can sit up on his own. Like, he's not 6 really crawling.
Yeah, maybe he's like in the 6 to
10 month old baby. Yeah, like it. But like also shaming the introverts, which I personally felt that very strongly as a kid, because you're just constantly told that being an introvert and being creative is not normal. Mm-hmm. It is my normal, but so and shaming her for not dating. She's 14 to 16 years old in this movie. I can't remember, somewhere in that age gap, and I'm like,
yeah,
your mom's shaming you for not being out on a Saturday night with a boy at like 14 to 16. Like, what parent ever?
Like, I know. Plus, she also needs you to babysit, so it's feels like you're losing on both sides of that coin in that conversation.
Yeah. So then Sarah's obviously very upset. She goes to her room, slams the door. Her dad's like, I'll go talk to her, like all burdened with it, holding the baby. And he knocks on the door. And she's like, I don't want to talk to you, go away. And then he's like, okay, peace. He's like, I put the baby in the crib. And they leave. And she's like, they guess he didn't really want to talk to me. And it made me really remember that sort of overwhelming teenage feeling where you don't want to let your parents into your life, but you're really pissed off that you're not important to them anymore. I mean, that's what it seems like. Of course you're important to your parents, but it's that weird transitional phase of being a teenager. So she goes, the baby's crying. She goes to the room and the baby's freaking out. And actually, the reason she went to the baby's room, because the baby is freaking out and screaming this whole time, she realizes that one of her stuffed animals, Lancelot, is missing. And she knows.
That it's called Lancelot is already incredible.
I know.
Stuffed animal names go.
She knows that her stepmom came into the room, took Lancelot to give to Toby. And she's just like the boundaries, the disrespect, she's mad.
Yeah.
She's mad. And she sees Toby, and you could tell that she does, as much as she complains about Toby, she does love him because she does pick him up, and her face softens when she sees him, and she's trying to soothe him. And she starts telling him this story. So she's making up this story to go along with the play that she was reciting, or the book she was reciting in the park about the Goblin King.
Yep.
It's like, once upon a time, there was this young princess who had this really horrible stepmother and this really obnoxious baby brother, and she was forced to babysit him all the time. And she wishes that the Goblin King would send his goblins to come and snatch the baby away so she could live her life the way she wants to.
Yeah, I feel that.
And it's the fire truck's back. Sorry.
Oh no.
Don't stop here. I'm fine. I don't want there to be an incident during the podcast. So she's doing this, and you see that you could tell the way she's saying this story to the baby, to Toby, almost sounding like more than just a story. She's not just telling him a story. It's like an incantation.
Mm.
And then the goblins, which the goblins were all done. They're all Muppets. Technically, they're all done by Jim Henson.
They're like dark Muppets, though.
No, they're
these are not your
actually
like
terrifying.
Kermit the Frog level Muppets. These are like incredibly creepy. Even rewatching this recently with Scarlett, my 8-year-old, was a little like, part of me was like, do we let an 8-year-old watch this? And I feel like I watched it much younger, but
absolutely.
But we were talking before we jumped on about how there's like a series of these movies. Dark Crystal is another one that comes to mind, where like pretty dark for kids, and yet every parent was just like, this is a kids movie because it's got puppets. Like, we'll just let the kids watch this. Yeah, it was definitely a dark movie.
I even have in my notes, like, the 80s were wild. Like, how did they think any of this is appropriate for kids? And I even have a note, I'm like, is this movie for children? Like, was it actually made for kids? I'm not entirely sure.
I wonder how much too, and like, I just don't remember. This would be like a good question for parents. I guess I could ask my parents. But it's one of those, like, how much of it was parents rented these movies for their kids, and never, like, I feel like in the 90s and later there was a lot of like family movie night, but I feel like for a while there it was just like, we rented this movie for the kids while we like went out on a date night, or where the kids had a babysitter. Like, it wasn't like the parents were ever watching these movies with us, so maybe that's why they never knew, or they never cared. It was never something they bothered watching.
I'm sure it can go both ways, but like I'm sure my dad rented this because he's like, cool, David Bowie's in it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
The kid will love it. Like, we're a David Bowie household. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll make the kid watch it because David Bowie's in it. I'm pretty sure that was the full stop of that thought process. But at the same time, I'm like, wouldn't some parents be like, this is really cool, David Bowie's in it, but is this appropriate for children? Because David Bowie's in it.
Yeah. Well, and fun fact that you were horrified by, it actually almost was Michael Jackson, which would have made this movie so weird in like a completely different and much more horrifying way. I was like, because then it would have all been Michael Jackson music, and it would have lost its like magic and like awesomeness.
This is a David Bowie thing, and for all of those who had been fortunate enough to ever see David Bowie in concert, he legitimately emanated like some sort of immortal magic on stage. He was spectacular. So it makes sense that he got the part.
Yeah, I feel like this, I never, until I found that fact researching for this episode, I literally would just assumed that this entire movie was written for him. Like,
I honestly thought so.
It feels like, and maybe it was, because another fun fact that we found and that we dug up taking a look at this movie is that there were something like over 25 different versions of this script. So there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen working on this movie, which is weird given how strange it turned out that like that many people had that many different iterations of it. But maybe there was like one weird person that was like, I really want Michael Jackson to be in this, and everyone else was like, no Bob, we're not gonna do that.
Michael Jackson was very good at his job. He was an amazing songwriter, amazing dancer. I cannot see him in this. No, he is not Jareth the Goblin King.
Not a Goblin King, no.
So she sets about, Sarah, to go back to the plot, basically says an incantation.
Accidentally summons the Goblin King.
Accidentally.
/ maybe a little bit on purpose. Like, maybe kind of hope that would turn out that way.
Yeah, so, the goblins come, they snatch the kid. Mm-hmm. And Sarah, in her credit, also realizes immediately that the baby is gone. Like, she is still in the doorway, turns the light off in the room, and then she's like, wait a second. She turns around. And then an owl appears at the window, and it's banging to get in, and she's scared, and there's a storm outside, and the baby's missing, and the window bursts open, and this owl comes swooping in, only to transform into David Bowie.
Yeah.
And he has a crystal ball A couple actually, and he does this cool juggling thing, which I would say I was just gonna say I'm like I wonder if that was CGI'd. Well, that didn't exist in the 80s.
It's
so
not
obviously
CGI'd,
not.
and he actually supposedly he refused to actually do it himself out of fear that he would like destroy all of the like just drop them and not
Break.
succeed. So there was actually there was like
balls.
A crystal ball stunt double,
That's amazing.
which is incredible. So yeah, he apparently did not do those stunts himself.
Yeah. He does these very if you've seen the movie, it stands out in your mind. This very cool hand trick. It flips the balls up and down and juggles them all around. Yeah. And he basically explains to her, like, hey, you said the incantation. I came to get the baby, and the baby is gone. And she's like, well, I need my baby brother back. He's like, okay, cool. Well, if you look out your bedroom window, which is now actually the Goblin City, you see there's this huge labyrinth. If you want the kid, you have to get him by a certain time, and good luck. And he just disappears. And one of my favorite lines in this, where is it? I wrote it down. She looks at the labyrinth and she's like, oh, that doesn't look too bad. Well, come on, feet. Let's go. Like, super nonchalant. Well, come on, feet. When you look at the labyrinth in the movie, it's like, it's super complex. It looks like it has different, like, ecosystems in different parts of the labyrinth, which we find out it kind of does.
It's not joking around. It's a pretty intense labyrinth.
And she's like, all right, let's go. So then she bumps into this character, our first Muppet, I don't know if he's a goblin. Anyways, his name is Hoggle. Mm-hmm. And she asks him, how do I get into the labyrinth? And he's just there. And this is where I first questioned, like, is this a kid's movie? Because when she comes up on him, he's just taking a leak.
Yeah.
Like, in public.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he's like,
there's no
person zips up.
There were like rated G Disney cartoons, and then there was like everything out. There was no in between. I feel like this is just like the PG movie that has no audience. It's like kids, whatever.
So she sees him and she's asking him questions, and he's kind of talking in riddles. Like, he's not making a lot of sense. He says, like, she's like, oh, hi, my name is Sarah. And he's like, I thought so. And then it's just like all these little like weird things. And he's spraying like with bug spray. He's spraying all these little fairies. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh my God, that's horrible. And she sees one that like fell and is like all like dying on the ground. She picks it up and it like bites her with razor sharp teeth. And he's like, told you they're pests. So we know this is a more dangerous sort of world. Like, it's not going to be an easy trip through the labyrinth.
Yep.
Also, a special note that I didn't realize until rewatching it, and like I've realized before, but there's glitter all over this set. Everything sparkles. Everything's glittery. It's so magical.
I mean, anyone that even just like bumped up near or in any vicinity to David Bowie would have just been straight up covered in glitter.
In glitter,
like,
yeah. I feel that's correct.
What happened here? I don't understand. Yeah.
So she gets into the labyrinth, and she's walking around. She asks Hoggle which way to go, and he's preoccupied with like his kill count on how many fairies he's downing.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of very like Legolas and Gimli in Lord of the Rings. He's like 67, haha. And he doesn't give her a straight answer, but the labyrinth looks like it just goes two straight ways and there's no curve. It just looks never ending on both sides. Mm-hmm. And he basically is like, good luck. And she starts walking one way, and then she gets frustrated after a while, and then she's like, what if it does end? So then she's running, and then she gets exhausted and she's frustrated. She kicks the wall. She hits the wall across from her and she slides down and she's sitting on the ground. And this adorable little worm comes up to her with this like practically Cockney accent, like this British accent. And she's like, hello. And she's like, did you just say hello? He's like, nope, but close enough.
I love that she's
So
shocked
cute.
that the worm talks after she's just seen like a weird goblin-y kind of creature
Fairies,
peeing in a labyrinth. And
dwarf,
she's like, that's fine. And totally, but the worm
yeah,
talking is very surprising to her.
yeah. It's anyway. So he tells her, in the labyrinth, not everything looks as it seems.
Nothing is as it seems.
Exactly. And she's like, "Oh, cool! Like,
No
help me."
problem.
And he
Yeah.
right, the wall right across from you is actually a path. Like, it has a corner. Like, you can go around it. And she goes and she's looking, and he's like, "Oh, I wouldn't go that way." And she's like, "Oh, okay, thanks." And then she goes the other way and runs off, only for the worm to say, "Well, if you just stayed on this road, you would have been there in no time." Which
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
Worm, couldn't you lead with that? Like, couldn't you start with, "Hey, just keep going straight. You'll get to the castle."
No,
No,
couldn't lead with that.
no,
No, that no.
absolutely not. So basically the movie goes on. She starts collecting friends along the way. It seems like the creatures and critters in the labyrinth are trying to hinder her. And we find out because Jareth is trying to hinder her.
Yeah.
He basically, I think it's after 11 o'clock at night, if she doesn't make it to the castle, he keeps the baby, and the baby will turn into a goblin.
Yeah. Why he like
So
really needs more goblins or wants to collect this child is kind of doesn't really ever make a lot of sense to me, but he seems very invested in keeping this baby and
I
growing his
think it
goblin
makes
army.
perfect sense. He doesn't want to keep the baby. He wants to keep Sarah.
Fair.
Please.
Okay.
From the moment the owl / Jareth swoops into the bedroom, the way he looks at her,
Not at
he
all
is in
inappropriate.
love at
It's
first sight. Yeah.
totally fine.
Okay, so there is this whole age gap thing
Mm.
that's extremely inappropriate.
Extremely problematic, but that's okay.
I will ignore it because he's in love with her and he does everything for her.
And because, as we said at the beginning, David Bowie as
It-
a person is just immortal.
it-
I know he's
immortal.
not, but yes, he is. So
He's a
he
magical
is.
creature. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has
It's
no
not
age.
real life. It's
He has
fantasy.
no age. He has no gender. He just is. He just is.
He's just
so
David
it's
Bowie.
okay. Yeah, exactly.
So, actually, in my notes, I write, so Jareth has basically set up this adventure for her. He implies it's because he wants to keep the baby at the end, but I wrote, I'm like, but he really wants her to be the queen. And it's like, she's always in this fantasy world. So he's like taking this baby away from her responsibility so she can go on this big adventure is my
he's
theory.
being helpful. He's like very
I think
helpful.
he's doing what she asked.
Yeah. Exactly.
So as she goes through the labyrinth, she meets different obstacles and she meets different friends. So she starts collecting her friends. Our Hoggle, who she saw at the beginning of the labyrinth, ends up coming. He sees she has this like shiny bracelet, like a little plastic bracelet with baubles, and he loves shiny baubles. So she's like, "I'll give you this bracelet if you help me get to the castle." And he's like, "Sure." But at the same time, Jareth keeps finding Hoggle and being like, "Bring her back to the beginning." Like, bring her back to the beginning. Stop interfering. She's not going to make it. At one point, she falls down this pit into an oubliette. And for those who don't know what an oubliette is, it's an old medieval castle pit. It's like part of a dungeon. It's a hole where it's so far down and there's no light and you get dropped in there and forgotten.
Yeah.
So oubli in French is forgot.
Real life thing that we all learned about by watching Labyrinth. So
yes.
All good. Yeah.
Labyrinth teaching us French.
Yeah, exactly.
Teaching us medieval castle history.
Medieval torture. Yeah, we're learning all kinds of things.
So when she's in the oubliette, we see Jareth the Goblin King back in his castle, and he's like, she shouldn't have gotten this far. She should have given up by now. And you could see he's contemplating it, and almost like a hint of a grin, a smile on his face.
He's impressed.
He's impressed. Also, I just want to put out there that Jareth the Goblin King is an amazing babysitter. he like puts on a whole performance for Toby. Like all again, fantastic songs are peppered throughout this whole movie.
Toby is having the time of his life. He has no
Yes.
idea how expensive David Bowie tickets were. And so this is really, I mean, of all things. Toby, by the way, additional fun fact, it was the illustrator's son, real life son. And he says that he does not remember anything about the filming of this movie because he was an infant in it. But he was told that he peed on David Bowie and he feels very excited about that as an adult. So, which is
fun fact. Like, I once peed on David Bowie.
Gotta be like one of the best things to say, like at parties where they have to, everyone plays like 2 truths and a lie. I mean, I feel like he would just win at all of those games.
All the time. Yeah.
All the time. Yeah.
So an impressed Jareth lets Hoggle go on with Sarah through this journey to essentially sabotage her.
Yeah.
She then meets, we're introduced to Ludo, who's one of my favorites. He's this gigantic, terrifying, but adorable looking beast of some kind.
Yeah, exactly. Not really a goblin, kind of beast-like.
No, kind of like a chubby Chewbacca with horns.
Yeah, which apparently made and I'm gonna mispronounce his name, but the author of Where the Wild Things Are, Maurice Seldak, I think it is. It made him like real angry because apparently he took this to be a ripoff of his book, which is kind of like feels like a stretch, but
I was gonna say loose interpretation, not even. I'm like it, not at all. But whatever.
One of the few books that I like wasn't into as a kid, so I can't.
Neither.
I have no.
Everybody's into that book. I've never been into that book.
Yeah. Sorry, fans of.
Yes, exactly. I don't know. I don't apologize for that. I didn't like the book.
I am sorry. That's not sorry at all. Get a new book.
Ludo is strung up upside down by a group of like goblin soldiers and this is again where I'm like, Jim Henson, what were you thinking? They're beating Ludo with hairless rats tied to sticks.
Sure, yeah.
So they can bite him.
Sure. We're learning about more torture techniques from the world's best puppeteer. I mean,
yes.
Where else would you learn torture techniques from? If this scene feels very there's like the fable about the lion and the mouse, so it feels very like he's this giant beast that she has to save, right?
Yeah. And he's actually such a gentle soul. So when she saves him, she realizes he's soft, he's cuddly, he's her new best friend.
Yeah.
Also a fun little thing that I noticed is at the beginning of the movie, Sarah keeps getting Hoggle's name wrong. And she keeps calling him Hogwarts.
Yeah. Which is incredible.
Which I'm like, did JK steal something?
Yeah, it feels likely. I mean, really feels likely.
I mean, she obviously, she must have seen the movie. Like, Hogwarts is just such an out there word.
This podcast, allegedly.
Oh, yeah, no. I just think, what an amazing inspiration. So now there's 2 little buddies that she has on this journey. They again come across a couple of other things. Like there's it looks like a pauper who has he doesn't speak, but his hat/head is a flamingo head.
Sure, yeah.
And that speaks for him. And they don't help her at all, but they ask if she'll, give them something. They have like a little pour box, and she gives them a ring of hers. And then she meets these 2 door knockers and all sorts of like funny different characters. There's different guards that all talk in riddles and rhymes. But at the same time, it seems like they're meant to obviously to deter her because that's what Jareth has commanded they do. But at the same time, they give her clues. Like it seems almost like they're helping her along, even though they're not supposed to. And I find
it's very Alice in Wonderland slash, maybe a little bit of the Wizard of Oz, but probably a little bit more of the Alice in Wonderland kind of. Nothing is like entirely helpful or kind, and everything is sort of like weirdly is part of this world that is just so foreign to her own world. a dream
I feel
state,
though
right?
halfway through though the labyrinth critters are really rooting for her though.
Yeah, she does kind of win them over. I mean, she seems to have a
she
lot of
does.
jewelry on her that she's able to just like bribe everyone and pull them along. Yeah. Note to self: if you're going to be kidnapped by a Goblin King,
hopefully you're wearing lots of jewelry.
Be wearing a lot of jewelry. I would be screwed right now. I'm not wearing any. I'm wearing a watch. That's it. I'd be in big trouble.
So through this journey, she gets separated from Hoggle because he gets scared by Ludo. And he's just like, I'm a coward, I'm out. And he runs, literally, like, I'm a coward, I told you I was a coward, ran away. So then Ludo and Sarah end up in this sort of forest, and he just suddenly disappears. He falls, we see he falls through the ground, but when she turns around, there's no hole there, so I'm not really sure what magic that was. But then we're introduced to the Frys. That's Frys. They're these red Muppets, and they have this really cool song that they do and little dance, and they dance with her around the bonfire. And as a child, the scene now terrifies me when they start to rip off their heads and limbs and play with them, which scared me so much as a kid. And it's funny because it's set to such like an upbeat, fun song.
Like meant to be fun, yeah.
Terrified me. And then they decide like, oh, your head should come off too because this is so much fun. We can all play together. And she's like, oh no, my head does not come off. And in comes Hoggle to save her again. I love it. I mean, she did run away from them by ripping all their heads off, which, I mean, clearly we know their heads come off, so she didn't murder them, but she tossed their heads far away and kicked one of their limbs away, so, like, they had to, like, gather their limbs and heads and chase after her. So she did save herself, which is one thing, like, Sarah consistently is super ridiculously fearless and brave throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, there's no prince locked up somewhere or like there's no man coming to save her.
No, absolutely not.
Just her
she's like, I got this.
Yeah, exactly.
No problems.
Exactly, her wits.
Also, when Jareth, every time she has a confrontation with Jareth, she's like, yeah, you don't scare me. Which, of course, every time he's, like, frustrated and disappears in a smoke of anger, but then he's, like, grinning. He's, like, impressive. Yeah. So, Hoggle's back in the picture. They find Ludo again. And now we're introduced to Sir Didymus and Ambrosius.
Great name.
So, it's this dog who has a knight. Sir Didymus is a knight who has... obviously. And he's a dog. He's like a little Yorkie obviously. Or something. Exactly. But what's really funny is his faithful steed, Ambrosius, is also a dog. Yeah. Because I guess why not? I mean, so they're at the bog of yes. They're at the bog of stink, and they have to figure out a way to get through the bog of stink. And it smells apparently absolutely horrible, but Sir Didymus can't smell it, and he's like, my two biggest traits are my loyalty and my sense of smell, which he clearly doesn't have any. He's a very cute character. He's super loyal, not really helpful, but a little annoying, but he's also really adorable. And here we find out, though it was hinted at earlier in the movie, that Ludo can call rocks. So this bridge that they were supposed to cross is old and rickety and falls apart, and Ludo he basically calls the rocks by having this little low rumble of a growl, and all these rocks pop up out of the bog, so then they can cross and continue on their journey. They decide to take a quick rest at Hoggle's suggestion, and Hoggle gives Sarah a poisoned peach from Jareth.
Yeah, which is never eat or drink anything if you're in one of these fairy tale lands. Like, just like rule 1, just especially never,
something ever.
Like
it had no glitter on it, and everything else has glitter on it.
Like, hang on, that piece of fruit has no glitter. This is a red flag. Yeah, and
it looks like a piece of fruit from her human world, from her normal world, not this magical world. So it's like, clearly it's a trap. But it is the best trap ever because it's my favorite scene in the movie. She falls.
That's like, eat it, eat it, eat it.
She falls into this trance or into sleep, and she goes into, and I don't know what it's officially called. I call it the crystal ball scene. So
Sure.
she basically gets sucked into this dream, into a crystal ball, but also it's a ball, like a masquerade.
Yeah.
So
It's a metaphor.
crystal ball, a crystal ball.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of layers here.
And
Oh.
in it, so she's in this dress that I still want to this day to own this dress.
Yeah, we should. I
I
wish we could sew better. We should make a dress like we should. We should have our own labyrinth crystal ball
where we
crystal,
all get to live out
where
this
we all
fantasy.
get to live this fantasy. Yeah, I think it'd be great.
So the scene is set. It's a masquerade. She's in this gorgeous dress. Bowie's
Glittery.
in this
Yep.
beautiful, like, midnight blue, like, costume. He has his wolf mask on, or his, I can't, no, it's not, was it, I can't remember. It was a wolf or a bird. It was a creature.
Some sort of,
And it's set to the song, one of my favorite David Bowie songs, As the World Falls Down. So look it up. It's a great song. We cannot have songs on this.
We cannot even hum it. We will be sued.
No.
Yeah.
The only thing that I ever dreamed of for my wedding in my future as a kid was to have this song as my dance.
Yeah. It's a solid choice.
Yeah, it's so magical. So in it, it's almost, she sees him differently. So it's like she sees him in a different light for the first time. So in it, he's there and he's kind of watching her as she looks around at all this spectacle of the ball, and he's sort of following her around but letting her explore things, and they lock eyes, and he's dancing with other people. He can't tear his eyes off of her. And then finally they connect and they get to dance, and it's so beautiful and
so magically inappropriate. It's wonderful.
We're forgetting the age gap. Okay?
We're forgetting the age gap. It's fine.
She looks at him like he's, you know, this magical, beautiful prince for the first time, instead of this evil kidnapping Goblin King. And as they're dancing, she sees clocks all around the room, and he gets this super proud look on his face when she realizes, like, I have somewhere else to be. I have something to do. And she manages to pull herself out of this. And you can see he is just so proud of her. He's like, you go, Sarah. That's my interpretation.
In Natalie's version of this movie, David Bowie is just like, he's like kind of a dad, but like not, because he's sexy, but also he like does all of these amazing, but yeah, no, it's fantastic. Your version of him is fantastic in this.
He's proud of her because she's gonna make it to the end.
He like wants to trap her, but he's like really impressed that she's not trappable. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah, he's proud of her. She's fearless. She's kind. She's made friends. She's got the whole labyrinth helping her at this point. And he's just like, I can't stop her. She's amazing.
Yeah, he's not really. You're right. Like, I mean, all joking aside, he's not really a bad guy in this. Like, he is the bad guy, but he's also not a bad guy. So. It's like a test
for her.
It's a test, a challenge.
Well, it's an adventure.
Exactly.
So after all of this, she finds her way back to her friends. She and basically they finally make it to the Goblin City gates. So now they've had all these tests of fear and bravery and kindness and wits and smart.
Yeah. Exactly.
And now they actually have to legitimately fight people.
Yeah.
So now there's this giant goblin robot that they have to fight, and again, Hoggle comes and saves the day.
Yeah.
So he felt really bad after poisoning her, and he's like, I've lost my only friend, and she's never going to forgive me. But then he went back and he saved them all, like Ludo and Sir Didymus and Ambrosia, and he saved her. And he immediately, after the rescue from this robot, he He's like, I'm sorry, like, I'm not asking for forgiveness, and I know you're not my friend anymore. And she's like, of course I'm your friend, and like gives him this big kiss, and they all have this big hug, and it's super cute because then it's kind of like Hoggle's growth. Hoggle has this growth from being like bored and sarcastic at the beginning of the movie, and then trickery, and then doing Jared's bidding, and then realizing that he has friends and he can act in kindness, and it does work out for him.
It does.
Yay, Hoggle, we're all proud of him. So they get into the Goblin City, and of course Jareth is like, ooh, no, the time hasn't run out. Like, all of the Goblin army has to go and fight them. So her loyal friends distract the goblins. She gets into the castle to try and save Toby, and there's this amazing scene where it's all the stairs are all kind of like that painting. So it's all these stairs going in different directions that lead to doorways and platforms that don't go anywhere, and the stairs don't connect. And she's kind of like running, trying to get to Jareth, and he has a crystal ball, and they kind of play this cat and mouse. And then he throws the crystal ball, and it's Toby, so now Toby's crawling around these stairs. And then she decides, like, enough is enough. She makes this really brave, again, fearless decision. She sees Toby on a lower platform, and she just jumps. She jumps for him. She's like, I'm not running. I'm not going to try and find this. I'm just jumping down there. And then Jareth saves her.
Hashtag not biased. We're not biased at all.
Not at all biased.
And then hero, I mean the bad guy of this movie, saves the day.
He slows her fall down so she won't get hurt. And then it's her and the Goblin King together. And they basically have she's like, you're horrible. You're ridiculous. Give me my baby brother back. And he's like, how could you, after everything I've done for you, after how generous I've been to you? And she's like, generous? And he lists off all the things. He's like, you asked me to take your brother away, so I did.
Right, yeah.
You wanted an adventure, so I gave it to you. When you got lost, you got help. Like, he just prattles off this list of like, and you realize when you're watching the movie, like, yeah, this is where you realize, like, oh, he isn't actually a bad guy. And he really did do this because she asked. Yeah. And it suddenly clicks to Sarah, where she remembers the lines from this book that she had about the Goblin King.
Yep.
And she's trying to remember, and it's where she always struggles with her lines, and then she finally remembers it. And she says, through dangers untold and hardships unnumbered, I have fought my way here to the castle beyond the Goblin City, to take back the child you have stolen. For my will is as strong as yours, and my kingdom is as great. You have no power over me. Immediately, she wakes back up in her... Sorry, one of our commenters said, she don't need no man. That's a fact. That is a fact.
She doesn't. She does, however, need her brother back. She's not going to get in trouble, so.
And she wanted her brother back. Not just that she needs it, because she just, she's like, I can't leave my brother here. He'll turn into a goblin. So she wakes back up in her room. Everything's fine. She hears her parents come home. Toby's asleep. And she's looking in her mirror, her vanity mirror in her room. And she's like, it's kind of sad. She's like, I'm really going to miss my friends. And then you see in the mirror Ludo, and he's like, oh, friend. And then you see Hoggle, and he's like, I guess you don't need us anymore. And she's like, I don't need you anymore. She's like, I'm always going to need you. There's always going to be times where I'm going to need my friends, and I'm going to need to remember our adventure. And you can see she's cleaning up her room, putting away her childish things, like she grew up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's like, I'm never going to stop believing in the Goblin King and the Goblin City and my friends, and they're real. And super cute ending to the movie. all of the friends, when she says, no, I still need you guys, they all just suddenly appear in her bedroom, including the Fries, which scared me. And they have this big,
like those guys.
I'm like, oh, why are they invited to the party? And they basically have this big dance party in her room. And I'm like, super cute, end of the movie. And as you see it's panning back, you could see the owl / Jareth, the Goblin King, is watching over her from outside her room.
Mm-hmm.
The end.
The end. I'm in love with this meme. For those of you listening, it says, I just met you and this is crazy, but here's my labyrinth. I stole your baby.
Nice.
It's just so very good. Well, we only have 15 minutes, but I want you to be able to dive into your crazy pants theories. So,
okay,
15 minutes, go.
So a couple years back, or a while back, there was this fan theory that went viral. Okay. And now I'm positive that this is real. Okay, so basically,
not just a fan theory, the actual truth of the matter. Let's go.
It's for real. And also, I definitely feel like somebody needs to make this movie.
That'd be very meta.
So
a movie about a fan theory about a movie.
Yes. Start casting young David Bowie lookalikes.
There is no such thing.
So, I know. He's so beautiful. Impossible to recreate. Okay, so the theory goes, centuries ago, a sorcerer named Jareth fell in love with a dark-haired girl named Sarah. But Sarah's parents, mostly her stepmother, would not let her marry Jareth.
I'm on board with this so far. I mean,
because they wanted her to take care of the spoiled baby brother. Like the little prince.
Cinderella vibes. Except with a baby. Cinderella with a baby vibes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in retaliation, the sorcerer Jareth kidnapped the baby and turned him into a goblin so he could marry Sarah. But then when Sarah died, he went mad. He went insane, and he's been hunting for centuries for a replacement or a reincarnation of his true love, Sarah. And he's been hunting for her in the human world. So basically it seems that whenever Jareth finds a dark-haired Sarah with a bratty baby brother and an evil stepmother, he whisks the baby away, brings all of these centuries of Sarahs to his labyrinth, and they all fail. They all fail the labyrinth. So he keeps turning all of these babies into goblins. Hence, he's the Goblin King. And this is where the goblins came from in the first place. So all the goblins in the movie are actually obnoxious babies. Obnoxious
Many
babies.
Tobies and Billies and Johnnies and Sams. Yeah.
So this is why when she was in the oubliette, Jareth says she should have given up by now. Not because he wants her to fail, but because he knows that every other Sarah has failed.
Yep.
And this also explains why Hoggle says, oh, it's you, when he first meets Sarah. Because he already knows her name is Sarah. When she tells him her name, he says, that's what I thought it was. Like, he knew beforehand. How crazy is this?
If there were 25 different versions of this script, it's conceivable that one of those had a backstory that they had to cut out. So, I mean, I'm on board for it. I like it. It's a good theory. All right,
it also makes the age gap less creepy.
It does. It makes the age gap less creepy. We just assume that there is no age, that, again, he's immortal and there's no...
He's immortal.
Yeah.
And the fact also that he, like, because she, I guess, won, and we know that they're in love in the movie, and he's still watching over her.
Yeah.
What if adult Sarah ends up with Jareth?
Yeah.
When it's appropriate.
I like it. I like it when it's appropriate. To be clear, we are not endorsing. Yeah.
No 20 year gap.
I like it.
Relationships. That's
I think it's
inappropriate.
Good. Yeah.
I think it's an amazing theory. I am so down for this.
It would make a good update. You know, I feel like right now there are like really, really no more original ideas, and they're just remaking and updating every single movie. This is the moment. This is the moment, Netflix people. This is your moment to take over.
Can we get Jennifer Connelly back on board?
I know she was. I was super late to the party, but I just watched the new not so new Top Gun, which she is in, and the entire literally the entire movie. I was just like, ah, Labyrinth, Sarah. Like literally paid no attention to the actual storyline of the movie. It was just like, yay, she's so pretty. I want her to wear the dress. Yeah, it was bad.
Her costumes in this movie were fantastic. His costumes,
yeah.
Jareth's final costume, it's like this all sort of white toned, like monochromatic. He has this cape. It's all these sort of cream and white colors, and the cape is kind of emulates owl feathers.
Oh, yeah, he's
swoon.
ridiculous.
I did literally in my notes write swoon very often.
I'm not surprised.
Just the word swoon, because that's the emotion I felt consistently while watching this.
Well, there are some additional crazy fun facts. Do you want to hear some fun facts?
Yes.
All right, so, and these are insane. This comes from Mental Floss, so I will drop this in the, as Natalie calls them, the show notes, quote unquote. We have show notes, and I will drop a link to these fun facts in the show notes. Nat also will drop a link with more information on this amazing fan.
I'm going to drop the link for the actual Tumblr post of the viral post that this started.
There we go. All right, so everyone can comment and give us their feedback if you can find where the quote unquote show notes are. All right, so Darth Vader was on the set of this movie because apparently George Lucas was on hand for the first day of filming and surprised the crew by arranging for Darth Vader to hand Jim Henson a good luck card for the making of this film.
That is so cool.
Just makes it so much cooler because Star Wars and feelings, but yeah, I think it just makes it amazing. Jim Henson, who we talked with, was like the king of the OG Goblin puppet king. But his son Brian Henson, who is obviously taken over after Jim died years back, was the voice of Hoggle, and Jim's daughter Cheryl was a puppeteer for one of the Fire Eyes, which I think is really cool. David Bowie did his own baby gurgle stunts. So apparently the baby wasn't willing to make any gurgle noises. So Bowie just did it himself, which is fantastic. And then I will wrap by saying, because I think we covered most of the other ones, but when I talked earlier briefly about the fact that Bowie didn't do any of his magic ball juggling himself, it wasn't a stunt double. It was the choreographer juggled the crystal balls without looking, hidden directly behind Bowie, sticking his arms through Bowie's armpits. So because no CGI, it was literally that corny. So yeah, we all need to rewatch just that one scene because I think that just sounds incredible.
I'm like, how do you fit somebody behind David Bowie? He's such like a lithe
and like to juggle behind. Oh man, people.
Oh, it was one-handed juggling, by the way, though.
Yeah,
it's all one-handed.
That is true. I know. I'm like doing the double hands. People, this is why you need to show up for the video so you can see me, mostly me, humiliate myself. Listening to it's not the same. You can't listen to my arms making maybe swoosh sounds near the mic.
For the listeners, Katie, from the camera view, it looks like she has T-Rex arms and trying to juggle.
Yeah.
She looks like a juggling T-Rex.
That's what it would have looked like. Someone's doing Imagine that job, though. Like, I mean, that would be the greatest day of my life. You're the choreographer and you're like, this looks beautiful. I'm really nailing it. All the dance scenes are awesome. And then someone's like, you need to juggle. I want you to stand really close behind David Bowie and put your arms through his. I'd be like, this is the best day of my life. This is the best.
You basically get to hug David Bowie.
Yeah.
One thing, and I know movies like this don't get nods for fantastic acting, but like shout out to David Bowie, who should have gotten an Oscar for this, because let's be honest, he acted predominantly throughout this movie with a bunch of Muppets.
I feel like that was like if anyone could do it, it was him. Like he would just be like by himself with people with like, because again, no CGI or computer animation of any kind, right? So just adults with their hands. Again, you need to be watching the video. Their hands in the puppets, just like at probably lower down than where he is, like hunched over. he would just be standing there feeling like a god among puppets. Like,
well, he was a king among puppets.
Yeah,
I keep saying Muppets because of Jim Henson.
I know. I can't call them, in good nature, I can't call the goblins Muppets. I just feel like they're not at the same level as the Muppets, but...
Well, there's daytime Muppets and nighttime Muppets.
It's true. These are the Muppets After Dark. Is there a Muppets After Dark? Because these are the Muppets After Dark.
Yeah.
Oh well, this should come as no surprise. So for those of you who have been keeping up with us, what are we on? Episode 4 now?
Yes.
I think we're episode 4. So if you're just joining in, we give a rating system. This is really more of like a movie summary and our feelings about movies than it is a movie review show. But because we are awesome and because we are weird and we have not yet reviewed this movie, but we are diehard Christian Slater fans, we actually have Natalie probably still has. It's probably really gross at this point.
No, I got rid of it.
Yeah, it was probably time, right? It was rotting. But I will find another one. You can send potatoes through the mail to anyone, just in case you're ever wondering what you could do in your spare time. You can send potatoes to people, but that would be boring. So you can put a picture, any picture you want, onto a potato. And I'm sure this is probably copyright infringement, but I put a picture of Christian Slater, 80s, 90s level Christian Slater, on a potato, and I sent it to Nat as a gift. And now our rating system for all of these movies is 1 through 5 Christian taters. So this movie, no surprise, Nat's holding up her hand already. 5
out of Christian taters.
5 Christian taters, which 3 of the 4 reviews we've done have been all 5 because we were starting with all of our favorite movies, with the exception of last week, Can't Hardly Wait. I thought it was only 3 taters. Doc thought it was 3.5. So I'm going to need to cut one of these potato images in half so we can do half markings. So that was my lesson.
I was not there for Can't Hardly Wait, but I would have also given it 3 taters.
Oh, okay. So there you go. So maybe we don't need the half. Doc felt like we needed the half. So maybe we'll have to figure out how to do some very intense Photoshop work to be able to add the half potato.
You can't mar his beautiful tater face.
I know. Yeah, maybe I have to just be like to the side of his face so it's not fully marking it off. But yes, another 5 potato movie. Just, so many 5 potato movies. And so I will say before we wrap that we are in person together next week, but we are not in person together on Thursday next week. So we are moving this show to Tuesday. Did we say? Tuesday. Wednesday at 9 o'clock Eastern. We will be live together. Maybe we'll even watch a movie and do some live clips of watching our movie. And next week we're going to do She's All That.
She's All That.
We're going to do She's All That. And then the following week, we'll do Sleepless in Seattle because we had you vote, and then we're just going to do all of them.
Yeah. I mean, we were going to do them anyways, so.
True. So if you have movie recommendations, which all of you have been sending in, which is incredible and always so much fun for us to see, we'll get to all of them. We have a pretty good list at this point. And then we also have the ones that we really like, but we were sent Usual Suspects, Groundhog Day. Dane really wants us to do Gattaca, so we'll have to do Gattaca and have Dane on for that one.
We're doing
Clueless,
Gattaca.
which we have Mel, our friend Mel. I told her she needs to come on to do Clueless. So if you have good suggestions or you want to come on as a guest to hang out with us and tell us why you like your movie, why your potato rating for your movie, you are welcome to come and join us. But yeah, we'll see you on Wednesday next week if you're catching us in the live studio audience. And if not, you can listen whenever you want, wherever you want.
Yeah.
Dane is in our live viewer audience right now downstairs, and he is saying Gattaca. Yeah.
Of course we're going to do Gattaca.
Movies. Obviously we're going to do Gattaca, and then we can make fun of the fact that Dane cannot recognize Gwyneth Paltrow, which I
It's been decades.
It's been decades. He probably can now. We'll have to test his skill set. We could do a live photos and have him identify Gwyneth Paltrow or not Gwyneth Paltrow. That could be a fun live viewer audience game we could play. Could be pretty epic. Well, you did it.
Sounds great.
You wasted another hour with us. Nat, you're getting really good at summarizing movies in an hour. No one needs to watch movies anymore. Nat can just give you the summary.
I'll just talk at you about it.
Only watch it after you've listened to an hour-long summary of the movie, and then you can decide whether you want to spend the additional 30 minutes to 65 minutes on the movie. Oh gosh. Well, it was, as always, so much fun. And you can do us all a favor, do Nat and I a favor, by liking this video, subscribing to our YouTube channel, going over to Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Spotify Video, wherever you listen, and leaving us a review, sharing with a friend, all of the above. Yeah, like, share, and let people know about the podcast. It's always fun to hang out with people and to hear everyone's recommendations. And we have an email address now, so you can reach us at thevhsclubpod@gmail.com. So yeah, send in your emails, send in your movie recommendations. Let us know what you like or don't like, what you agree with or don't agree with. We'd love to hear from you. But we will see you next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, here on YouTube. Otherwise, we'll catch you in your ears whenever you want. Bye, Nat. See you in a couple days.
Bye.